This is a video demonstrating 1 out of 10 built-in accessibility features developed in an EU-funded research project called We4Authors Cluster. In this project, accessibility expert company Funke, together with market-leading authoring tools, have investigated how authoring tools can best support web authors in creating accessible content by default. In this video, we present a solution to ensure forms are created to become accessible for people with disabilities. We will demonstrate the problem from the perspective of the end user, the challenge from the perspective of the web author, the solution recommended by the consortium behind the project, the result for the end user, and examples of code. The video is accompanied by a written technical specification to support implementation in any authoring tool. We hope the feature will inspire you to make the world more inclusive.
My name is Joakim Centervik, and I use a text-to-speech solution. In my case, it's because I'm blind, but that's just one reason for use a text-to-speech solution. Now I would like to show you when I fill out a form to sign up for an accessibility training. To make it possible for you to know what's happening, you can follow along, watch your screen, and you can see what my screen reader does. Top left, you see a window that represents what's shown on my braille display. Further down, you see a yellow rectangle that shows you what my screen reader is focusing.
Heading Level 1 Register for Online Training in Accessibility. Are you looking to get a solid introduction to digital accessibility? Then take this chance to participate in our basic training. We show clear examples of accessibility done right, as well as bad examples, review statistics, tell about political decisions, and explain uncommon terms and concepts. Heading Level 2 Participant Information.
So let's start to fill in the form.
Edit has autocomplete blank.
What kind of information do they ask for?
Edit has autocomplete blank.
I still got no clue.
Edit has autocomplete blank. Send registration button.
This form is definitely inaccessible. I've got no idea what kind of information they ask for, so I can't send my registration.
The form Joachim tried to fill out is not created correctly and does not give the proper information. The form contains the following issues. When grouping form objects visually, the same information needs to be presented to users with assistive technology. Grouping objects is done with field set and legend elements and not only a heading element. Over each form field, there is a text telling you what to fill in, but the text is not technically connected to the input field. A label element is used but not connected to the input field with the attribute for and ID. Therefore, the information isn't presented to users with assistive technology. The attribute autocomplete, which defines the expected value of an input element and provides assistance for users filling out the form, is missing. If the attribute required is missing, there is nothing that specifies that an input field must be filled out before submitting the form. The error message received when the form isn't filled in the correct way is only visually shown. The error message isn't technically connected to the input field. Users with assistive technology don't receive the error message at all.
My name is Mark Haunschild, and I'm an accessibility consultant who for nearly 20 years has worked for the German Federal Office for Food and Agriculture. In my work, I often deal with the implementation of forms, which are one of the most complex items I handle as a web author. The thing is that no CMS really provides you with accessible forms out of the box. That is no big surprise, as forms are very complex. they need to be logical and well designed, but also technically correct. It is often tricky to create forms in an accessible way, as they require interaction with the end user, error messages, etc. All in all, there are a lot of things to remember and to do right. So CMS should give you the freedom and responsibility to add these necessary informations like error messages or helpful instructions. Unfortunately, in most authoring tools that I've tried over the years, it is not possible. Another thing is that I haven't seen any tool that allows you to mark up the field with the new WCAG 2.1 criteria on autocomplete neither. Putting all these things together, it is quite frustrating. For the less experienced web author, it is simply too hard to get all these things right without better built-in support.
In order to create accessible forms, you need to consider the input from the user and the output presented to the user. Forms require clear labels and instructions, as well as a good code structure. This feature provides built-in support for web authors to create accessible forms. When the web author creates a form in the authoring tool, the web author can choose different form objects. For form objects that are often created, such as name or email, a list of predefined form objects is provided for the web author to choose from. All the necessary information is provided, and the web author can add the selected object to the form without having to add any further information. If the web author adds a form object which is not predefined, the web author is informed that information needs to be added to meet the accessibility requirements. Clear instructions on how to remediate this are provided. The result is that forms are created with the necessary information provided and a correct code structure. Now, let's see how this is handled by assistive technology.
Let's try again.
Heading Level 1 Register for Online Training in Accessibility. Grouping Participant Information. Participant Information Grouping. Name edit required has autocomplete blank.
Oh, they asked me for my name.
Alert, this field is required. Fill in your name.
Okay, I made a mistake. I need to shift tab to correct it.
Alert, you need to enter invalid email address. Invalid entry. Name, this field is required. Fill in your name.
This field is required.
J-O-A-K-I-M K-I-M space C-E-N-T-E-R-V-I-K.
Now it's time for the email address.
Organization, optional.
Okay, this field is optional, so I will leave it blank.
Send registration button.
Now I can send my registration and sign up for the training, because this form is accessible.
When the form is coded correctly, there is a field set element used to group related form objects in the form, a legend element that describes the grouping of the field set element, a label element that defines the input for form objects. The label element is connected to the input element with the attributes for and ID. The label will be presented to users with assistive technology when the user has focus on the input field. The label element also provides a larger touch target for users who have difficulty clicking on small regions. The attribute autocomplete is defined for the input element and provides assistance to users filling out the form. The attribute required specifies that an input field must be filled out before submitting the form. When an error occurs in the form, the error message is connected to the form object as part of the label. The attributes ARIA Live and Role Alert presents and makes sure that the error message is conveyed to users with assistive technology.
If you make your form accessible, I can understand what kind of information you ask for, and I will be able to fill out the form.